Good evening, everyone. My name's Adrian Rooke, and I'm a Druid in the order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. When I'm not druiding, I'm I'm a therapist, and I've specialised over the years in working in the field of addiction due to my own experience. I'm hoping there's lots of people popping up and saying they've joined, and welcome to everyone. I'm hoping you can hear me, and if somebody could just say, yay, I can hear you, Aid, that would be great, because I can't hear myself here. There's no sound coming back to me. So I will trust in the gods and have faith that you can hear me, and I will continue with my talk. I'm hoping to share with you some experiences of magic and how magic's manifested itself in my life, and also some experiences that I've had where magic's actually saved my life. And I think magic manifests in multiple ways. Can anyone hear me? There's no one saying that they can actually hear me, and it would be a shame if I was waffling on and people couldn't hear me. I will continue in my vigil. So it's 8:01, so I'm going to start anyway. So welcome, everyone. Such a pleasure and a privilege to be here and to be able to talk to you. When Philip mentioned it to me, I was absolutely terrified and frightened to death. It was a strangely challenging thing, considering I have spoken a lot in public in my own private life and my personal working life, but this is different. I think it's talking to family and friends. It should be easier, but in some ways it's strangely harder. Just wanted to say, I had a conversation with Philip several years ago, and it was a conversation that we had in a sauna of all places on a camp, and there was only Philip and I there, and he was asking me about some of my experiences, my life experiences, which have been numerous, and I told him about an experience of how I sold my shop. That was a great transition, and around the time that I joined the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, and it was a time of huge transformation for me, which was wonderful. But it was also very challenging, and I don't believe that, certainly in my experience, there was a certain amount of sacrifice that life demanded from me in order to follow the Pied Piper of my soul, the song that my soul was singing to me. I'd created a life for me that wasn't really my life. It was the life that I thought other people wanted me to live. And it was slowly destroying me, and something needed to change. But during this conversation with Philip said to me quite in his very Philip-esque way, Adrian, what have you got out of being a Druid? What's Druidry done for you? And I looked at him and I said, well, Philip, apart from divorced, bankrupt, and covered in tattoos, I've had an absolutely fantastic time out of Druidry. And it saved my soul, saved my sanity, and it gave me a path on which I've been truly blessed to be able to follow and to meet the wonderful people that I've met along the way. But the story I told Philip then was about a shop that I had, and I ended up in the fruit and vegetable trade to please my father, really, and I was a bit lost and a bit aimless, having had quite a dysfunctional childhood and lots of addiction, lots of strange bullying and so on and so forth. And my solace in those days was to be in the woods at the back of my house, and I had a little place in a hawthorn copse where I used to crawl under and I'd be safe in there. And it was just wonderful. And I could put my ear to Mother Earth and I could hear her whispering to me, and I felt safe then. Yeah, I just love the whole C.S. Lewis, Narnia, Lord of the Rings. I just wanted a world where there were talking animals and exciting talking trees, and that wasn't what I had at the time. So you know, life was as it was. But this, you know, I was telling Philip that I'd gone to the Dabuni Grove one night, and we were having a talk, and we always had a sharing talking stick. And I said that, you know, I was troubled because I realised that I needed to get out of the fruit trade in order to open up other possibilities. I couldn't get out unless I sold the business, and it was suggested to me by Susan Jones, who used to be the tutor coordinator and one of the very magical people that I've met along the way. And she suggested that I go in the next day and have a ritual. And the obvious seems to elude us sometimes, and have a ritual and to thank the shop for all that it done for me, and to give it my blessings, and then to be able to move on. And there was a part of me that was somewhat slightly skeptical, but I thought, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And so the next day in I went, armed with various spring waters and incenses, and I had this lovely ritual on reflection with the shop, and asked it, you know, it's time for me to go now. You know, you've supported me in the journey this far, but my destiny does not lie here; it lies elsewhere. And lo and behold, the shop had been on the market for 2 years. I hadn't had any interest. There was a major financial crash at the time. And the very next day, I went into the fruit market in Bristol, whereby I was purchasing the day's produce. And a chap came up to me and said, Aid, is your shop still for sale? I've just been made redundant, and I'd like to lease it off of you for 5 years. And I mean, I was stunned. You could have knocked me over with a feather. But once I'd kind of gained my senses again, I very quickly put everything into action. I was out within 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, I was away from the shop, and eventually that gave me the breathing space to sell it to somebody that this guy knew eventually, and it freed me up to embrace my new life and my new destiny. And so, you know, along with working through the OBOD course and the learnings that came with that, I did lots of other things. I trained, I went back to university and I trained as a therapist, particularly in the field of addiction because of my own experiences. And you know, magic manifests itself in many, many ways. And I think for me, the greatest magical act of all is to transform a life that is potentially going nowhere, or very chaotic, you know, full of addiction and pain and sadness. And that was a path I followed myself for many years, and it's bleak. It's a bleak journey to be dependent on substances to create an environment where you can forget that you're not fully present in your own life and you're not fully living your own life. So for me, the most divine of all alchemies is the transformation of a potentially wasted life into something really special. And you know, and I've been able to witness that over the years. I ended up as the head of primary care counselling at a prestigious treatment centre until my last heart attack, and it was beautiful to just watch, you know, broken souls coming in to the treatment centre, and then having that epiphany partially created by us, the staff, and enabling that environment to be a magical place. And they called it the Magic Mansion, and people got well there, and 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 I'm still in contact with many people who many years later are well, and they've got families and new careers and lives that they would never have had if they'd have stayed in the loneliness of active addiction. So that said, that's one area where magic's worked for me in my life, but there's been a lot of other manifestations, and I wanted to share a couple with you because I believe now that for me, magic manifests itself in many different ways, and I don't try to work magically. If I'm honest, I try to live magically, and my life is a magical merry-go-round of amazing things that keep occurring in my life, alongside some things that aren't so good. I've had lots of health issues over the years, and here's one example. Recently, 4 years ago, I had major heart surgery, and the surgeon said to me that he cancelled the operation once and said, "I can't do this operation. I don't think I can get you through it. And I want you to try and live on the medication." And it was back to that life that I'd known before, where you're only half conscious. And I thought, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. So I asked him to go ahead with the operation. And a dear friend of mine in Druid, Kieran Sibley, put out on the internet the time I was having the operation. And I really, left to my own devices, I was going to keep it a little bit secret. But Kieran put it out there, and then the next thing, just incredible. And I have to be careful when I think back on this, because I can get quite tearful, and I don't want to cry in front of all of you people. It was just amazing, the amount of people around the world that I've met through my life, through my recovery from active addiction, and through my magical spiritual life, which has been predominantly within Druidry. I know very many people all over the world, and it suddenly started to pop up on the internet that people were having all kinds of ceremonies and rituals for me, for my benefit, to enable me to come through this operation. And I obviously did, otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you now. But the surgeon was amazed at the complexity of the operation and how smoothly it went. And when I told him and showed him that all these people around the world have been praying for me and sending me love and sending me healing and sending healing for him, so he'd have a steady hand, I think he kind of just shrugged a little bit at that point. That might have been a bridge too far, but I came through that, and here I am. I'm here today to tell the tale, and that's one incidence of magic and magic in action. But I don't think that. And oh, by the way, I have got the compulsory tea, and from my grandson. Granddad's my hero. I don't need any excuse to drink tea. People that know me know that I drink pints of the stuff constantly. And there's only one really magical form of English breakfast tea, and it's called PG Tips. And if Willem is watching from Friesland, Willem will agree with me, because when I was doing some men's retreats over in Friesland, it was compulsory to take over boxes of PG Tips for Willem, which is really nice. And so let me just tell you this story about my mum. My mum, bless her, she ended up with Alzheimer's at quite an early age, and it was a particularly nasty form of Alzheimer's, and it was called Lewy body disease, and that was a challenge. Me and my sister promised that we'd keep her in her own home. So 3 nights a week, we'd do alternative. I'd do one, she'd do one. 3 nights a week we'd go in, and then my brother would do one night. And it was putting her to bed and reading her the stories that she told me as a child. And that was a very challenging experience to have to bath my mum and put a nappy on her. And the worst thing was to leave her there alone through the night. But she said to me one day, she'd been taken into hospital. She had a urine infection, and I'd gone in to visit her, and I was going to Cornwall to see a friend of mine, a Druid friend of mine, and she asked me a question. She had a lucid moment, and she said to me, Adrian, she said, have I got anything to live for? And I wanted to go into that, what we always do. Yes, you've got us, we love you, the grandchildren, everybody loves you. But it wasn't that. And I knew that she had nothing really to hang on for. And that, you know, her journey was only going to be worse from here on in. And we had a conversation about what was stopping her from going. And she was convinced that if she went, then I was the next in the waiting room, in God's waiting room, she said. And she wanted to hang on as long as she could, so I didn't have to go in the waiting room, which is kind of quite nice. But anyway, I was going to Cornwall, and I wasn't going to go because she was ill, and she knew I was going. She insisted I went. And I went for a walk with my friend Rachel to Modron's Well. And as we were walking through, we came across an oak tree which was bedecked with cluties. And for anybody that doesn't know what a clutie is, it's a wish or a blessing or a spell that people make from various things, and they put into the trees and ask the tree spirits and the goddess to bless them. So I did that. And I made a clutie, and Rachel, bless her, she had a tiny little bag, and out of that bag came shells and string and everything you could imagine, and in a never-ending quantity. And I made the clutie, and I tied it to the tree. And as I tied it to the tree, I asked the goddess to take my mum quickly, that she could go without pain and with no more suffering, because her work here she'd done what she needed to do. She brought up 3 kids. She'd been a good woman and a hard worker and a lovely soul, and she gave out wherever she could, even though her life wasn't easy. And so in the doing of that, I tied it on, and I had a little tear because it felt strange to pray for my mum's death, but also right. And anyway, I spent a couple of days in Cornwall. I came back on the Sunday, and I was going to go to see my mum, and I phoned my sister up and said, I'm going to go in and see mum. And she said, oh, don't bother, Aid. They moved her to another hospital, and they have beautiful grounds at this hospital, and all of her brothers and sisters have been in to visit her. They'd had a magical afternoon, and she'd gone back and sat in the chair, and the nurses had said she was asleep. And while she was sat in the chair asleep, she had a massive aneurysm that just exploded her brain in seconds, and she never woke up again. And half an hour after I had the conversation with my sister on the phone, she was saying, Mum's dead. You know, I was contacting saying Mum's dead. And I had such an intense sense of gratitude that the gods, once again, the goddess, the Great Spirit, had listened to my prayer and to the action. It's not just, you know, that I put it out there in a verbal sense. I'd actually anchored that intent in the making of the clutie. So for me now, I think always magic has to be followed by action, by some kind of manifestation. Even if it's only writing your intent down on a piece of paper and then casting it into the universe, or tying it to a balloon or something like that, you know, or burning. These things really work. These things really work. Oh, somebody said I've made them cry. I do apologize. That wasn't my intention. So recent manifestations of magic. And then I'm going to read a magical poem from a friend of mine. So a lot of people know Joe Dunbar, and Joe Dunbar and I work together, and she's my girlfriend, and we've been working together to make magical retreats based around the tree ogham and the wheel of the year, the wheel of the tree year. So we did one 2 weeks ago on the silver birch, and we didn't have the venue we had was awful. It was a classroom, and there was nothing else that we could find in the area. So this is back last year, and I said to Joe, I said, you know, we could do with a yurt, really. If we had a yurt in your garden, that would be perfect. And you know, it's like, you know, it was just crazy, because I said, right, okay, we need a yurt, so let's do 3 Arwens, and we'll see if the universe decides to manifest this yurt for us, because we didn't have the money to spend on buying a new yurt. It wouldn't justify that. You know, we do these workshops because we love it, not for the profit we make on it. But so anyway, not 2 weeks later, I was visiting Ema in Ireland with Matt McCabe and the wonderful Arthur Billington, and we were having a magical time anyway, being with Ema and touring around the sacred sites, and I thought I'd mention it. And the Bodger was there. Some of us will know the Bodger. He's a guy that used to go on to the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids camps a lot many years ago. And I just said, if any of you guys know of a yurt for sale, cheap, then, you know, I'd be really up for it. And the Bodger, in his very kind of dour, quiet way, said, you don't need a yurt. And I looked at it, I said, well, I do need a yurt. I've just said I need a yurt. I'm really looking for a yurt. And it was like, no, you don't need a yurt. Well, I think I do. That's why I've just said I need a yurt. You know, I'm looking for a yurt. And he just looked me in the eyes and he said, you don't need a yurt. You've got one. I've just given you mine. And I just, you know, and it turned out that they were moving and downsizing their house to a smaller house. And he'd only said a couple of days earlier, I don't know what to do with the yurt. We can't take it with us. And so again, is it coincidence? No, well, not for me. I don't believe in coincidence. You know, I've only got, you know, 20 minutes here. So, and I think I'm almost exhausting that. So maybe I just need to shut up, and I'm just going to read this poem, and then I'll finish with my last piece of magic that came. This was written by a friend of mine called Ivan Macbeth, and he was a great magician in my life, and somebody who I was very privileged to have met. And this is called Merlin. Who are you? I am the spirit inside of every single thing which reaches out to shine its true essence into this wonderful world. I am the sun at its height and the moon in the night. The planets are my children. They spin the destiny of all things in the infinite spaces above and below. The tides are my moods. They affect all things in the flux and fall. I am the past, the future, and the eternal present. You will find me in every breath of the whirling wind, in the diamond flash of a shooting star, in the silence of eternity, in the proud stance of the disturbed stag, in the shared laughter amongst good friends, in the boughs of the mighty oak, and in the electric caress of a lover. The power of the universe flows through me, yet I am the servant of all things, that which loves, frees, and makes beautiful, that which brings together in peace, and that which seeks joy in life, whether consciously or unknowingly, and lives in potential within the hearts of all beings. Will you seek me? Does your soul sing when you hear my call? When you find me, will you recognize me, love and honor me? Bring me alive inside of yourselves. Will you have the persistence, the ability to glean the secrets from my released spirits? And then finally, will you have the goal, the empowerment to embody my spells through the means of your lips, your arms and willing bodies, for the good of the land and all beings? For my mission is simple, to manifest the sacred here and now, in this lifetime, so that the prophecies are fulfilled. All will then experience their birthright. All dreams will become true, all hearts will beat to a single rhythm, that of unity and fulfillment. The god and the goddess, the king and the queen, heaven and earth, all opposites will join together in the eternal dance of creation. The clouds and cold mists will roll back to reveal the summer lands which have always been here for those with eyes to see. We will recognize each other as the brothers and sisters we lost so long ago. and embrace again, found renewed, and we will celebrate the perfection in each other. The earth, nature, the goddess in all her moods is my lover, child, mother, and muse. To her have I given my heart, and as she feels, so do I. Through all her changes, so do I transform, and at the same time help her transform. Like a proud parent, I make her happy, healthy, and beautiful for the coming of her Lord. Great Spirit of the heavens who unites with her, impregnating her with the star seed of the future. To him have I given my empowerment, and as he creates, so do I. For everything with life force grows and changes in accordance with the dreams of the sacred. I am no one person. I am a dream inside all beings, waiting to be dreamed and carried into the conscious light of day. I am a magical adventure and then brought to life. Anyone can journey with me. It's simple. Just see me for what I am and then take the first step. Step into the unknown with me and I will accompany you along the twists and turns of our own individual journeys, keeping you safe and whispering directions into your inner ears until you have found the way home. By then you will have become me, sharing my dreams and destiny, shaping the world in the image of the sacred wherever you go. So when you feel the time is upon you, put aside all meddlesome thoughts and relax into the peace of the gurgling brook, the dragonfly with the crackling rainbow wings, or the majesty of the hanging stones at sunset. Call my name softly and I will come. Feel the sensations on your body as I approach and welcome me into your heart. Whisper what you need to utter in order to break the bonds of my sleep, my imprisonment in matter, and embrace my emergent spirit in gentleness and care. Treat me as your inner, magical, loving child, loving me as I grow and develop through the years. And in time, there will be the glorious realization that you are me and I am you and we are all together. And I think I'll finish on this last one little thing at the risk of being hung, drawn, and quartered by Philip. My last act of manifestation and magic was in the summer to put out to the universe that I needed some singing bowls. A guy had done some singing bowl healing for me, and I thought, I need to take this into a treatment center and give people recovering from a detox, people who are trying to restore their bodies after the horrors of addiction, could really do with some of this, some of this sound, beauty, energy. And so I put it out to the universe. I need to manifest some gongs or some singing bowls. Less than a week later, I had an email from a cousin I very rarely see, who said to me, Aid, I was just about to put these gongs of mine on eBay the other day, and he said, I suddenly had a thought, maybe I should give them to you or offer them to you before I put them out for sale. Would you be interested? And I said, I most certainly would. And there's a very funny story to tell you about this, Steve. And it turned out that I put out there to invoke into the world the energy to bring these musical instruments to me at the same time as he was about to sell them. And so something happened across the airwaves and he decided to give them to me. The one thing I didn't state, though, when I set out to invoke this energy was the size of the singing bowls I wanted. And I'm going to end with this now. I'm going to pull back, and I hope you can see the size of the gong that arrived. And we're getting to know each other. And I'm going to just say farewell to you all with this beautiful healing sound. And to say love and blessings to everyone, and thank you for listening to me. And I'm sorry if I've gone on too long. Bless you all. Lots of love. Bye now.